In 1952, a man comes across the burned body of a woman in Cottonwood Gulch, just outside of Black Hawk, Colorado. He returns to the site several times before reporting what he found to the sheriff's office, a fact that will immediately cloud his actions and suspicion. Without any identifying information, the woman becomes known as Maria to some, or more often as the Pyre Case, for the way she was murdered. It's been 72 years since she was murdered, and there are questions if she will ever be identified. You see, her remains are missing. This is her story.
Hi, I'm Vanessa.
And I'm Amy.
And you're listening to She Goes by Jane. At the end of this episode and every episode, we will be joined by a special guest who will read an original poem by Amy Baker about the women we're featuring. This week, we are joined by Dedee Pfeiffer.
Hi, Vanessa.
Hi, Amy.
Vanessa, do you know who I've been thinking a lot about lately?
No.
No. Why would you?
Why would I?
Stephanie Quayle.
Okay, see, I would not have guessed that.
No. So if our listeners don't know, I mean, we kind of say at the top, but Vanessa and I did a documentary, also with Vanessa's husband, Jason, and Stephanie Quayle, who's a brilliant songwriter and musician, created a song called Jane about unidentified women and missing women. And she's a beautiful music video.
Right. So if you see the documentary, if you watch it, and it is out there, it's the song right at the very beginning and the end.
Right. And the reason I was thinking about her is a little bit of a journey here, but Stephanie just came out with a new book called Why Do We Stay? Which is about toxic relationships. So Stephanie had been in a relationship with a man. They were engaged, and he unfortunately died in a plane crash. And after that, very soon after that, she found out that she was not the only person.
Not the only significant other.
Yes.
In his life.
And so she's made a beautiful album about it and did a podcast. But now she has a book that she's hoping to help others with. And the reason I was thinking about that is one, this book just came out, but also two, Stephanie's episode that she did with us, because she's been such a great supporter.
She's been amazing.
Do you remember the episode that we did with her?
Notes from the Pierce County
Sheriff's Department.
That's what she read.
Yeah, yes. So it is about 3 unidentified bodies, 2 of which were unidentified women who were found in Pierce County, Washington, and
had been inadvertently lost.
Placed in a landfill.
Not inadvertently, I guess. They were kind of deliberately placed in a landfill.
And so I remember we had a conversation in that episode. So if you want a further discussion about that, check that one out. But we talked a lot about landfilling.
Is this going to be a topic today?
Yes.
More landfills?
Potentially, yeah.
Oh, no.
So just to forewarn people before we get into this, I think particularly, I think every culture has really customs surrounding bodies and care of bodies. Even when
Are you saying that the American culture's custom is to throw bodies in landfill?
No, I'm saying the American culture is to definitely care for bodies.
Okay.
And if this is upsetting, this is definitely an episode that's going to touch on that. Also, this is a pretty brutal.
Okay, so many content warnings.
Yeah, I mean, it is an unidentified murder victim. So
okay.
So with all that said,
I don't even know what I'm getting myself into with this one today.
Yeah,
I never do.
No, but
even today, I just feel less confident.
Right, and this one's pretty brutal. I try to leave out some of those details, but okay. So, for this story, we have to go all the way back to Tuesday, September 30th, 1952. A 31-year-old man named Charles Dameth stops in a spot called Cottonwood Gulch off of Highway 119 near Black Hawk, Colorado. To sort of set the stage, Highway 119 is over 60 miles of winding, twisting road, and just past Black Hawk, it's surrounded by hills that are largely covered in scrub and evergreen trees. Occasionally there are gulches, which are basically these steep ravines that often have water flowing through them. So some of these are easily accessible from the road because the gulch and the roadway intersect. then that's true for Cottonwood Gulch, which has Cottonwood Creek running through it, and that empties into North Clear Creek. So that's the landscape we're in.
This is my first time ever hearing about a gulch.
Now you know.
Now I know.
About gulches.
Gulch expert.
Charles would likely be considered a newcomer to Colorado. He was born in Michigan and hadn't moved to Colorado until 3 years before, so in August 1949. And he was accompanied by his second wife, Malverna, which is a name you do not hear often enough.
It is very cute.
Yeah. And he wasn't exactly from the Black Hawk area. In fact, he lived about 30 miles away in Arvada, which is now basically a suburb of Denver. But he'd come to this specific gulch plenty of times before. Largely, it seemed to just shoot his gun. And this isn't unusual. This area was often used for things like target practice by others.
Yeah, okay. I'm just thinking, this is my favorite gulch. For shooting my gun.
For my recreation. And then, others did too. They did target practice out there. I don't know.
It's cool, though.
On this September afternoon, Charles stops in Cottonwood Gulch to shoot what he calls his varmint.
It gets better and better. I like Charles. Am I supposed to like Charles? Is it okay to like Charles?
I think we might feel a little neither here nor there about Charles overall.
Oh, no. Okay.
So he's out there specifically hunting magpies.
With his varmint gun.
I don't know specifically, but he described his own gun as a varmint gun to hunt varmints, like magpies.
I love magpies.
I did not know that magpies were as brutal as they are, so...
What?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll see what that means. You don't like magpies? Brutal magpies. I thought you were going to say that the magpies were, doing something.
No. Yeah. Apparently, they're known for picking eyeballs out.
That's fine. Every bird will do that. We have to defend the poor magpies.
The magpies are fine.
Of course they're going to... But a turtle would do it, too?
No, out of live things. They will pick eyeballs out of live things.
Not live, half dead, I'm sure.
No, live. Anyway, can we move on?
My goodness. Okay. Wow, Amy's a hater of magpies.
I'm not. I was just wondering why someone might be hunting magpies.
Okay.
So, after he was done, he wandered deeper into the gulch, and there, just about 300 feet from the road, he discovers the leg of a body sticking out from under a log that had, at some point, been burned. Now, Vanessa, we talk about all the time how dog walkers find bodies, and you've specifically mentioned before mushroom hunters.
Yes, mushroom gatherers.
Yes.
Mushroom hunters. Whatever.
Gather?
What are they called?
I don't know. Gatherer seems more fitting.
Foragers. They are foragers.
Foragers. Okay.
Yeah.
But also it occurred to me just now how often hunters must find bodies. And of course, I was interested in the data on that, but it seems there aren't necessarily firm numbers. Alan Neal, who was the NamUs Midwest Regional Program Specialist, said, "We can't put a number on it, but bodies are always turning up in the spring when people are hunting turkeys and morel mushrooms. And again in the fall through early winter when hunting seasons are open. Hunters are out there in places no one else goes, and they can see better because the foliage is down, and they're just very aware of their surroundings." So again,
But I mean, are we going to call Charles a hunter?
He was hunting magpies.
He's not hunting them. He's shooting them up. Bang, 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 bang.
What would that be besides hunting?
Well, he's not bringing them home with him.
Well, I don't know what
he's calling it a varmint gun. He's just killing them for the sake of killing them, is he not? That's not hunting.
Is it magpie slaughter?
Magpie murder. I'm not going to call this man a hunter.
Okay, are you having some feelings?
I'm having some feelings.
Okay. So there's not firm data on hunters, but it isn't outside the realm of normal, well, at least normal in terms of finding a body that he would have found her. But what is unusual is that Charles doesn't report this right away. In fact, after he leaves Cottonwood Gulch, he ends up returning to the scene 2 more times that day. I'm really not sure what... Yeah.
Okay. So he found the body. And then he returned 2 more times that same day?
Yeah.
Was there not a police presence there still?
Well, because he didn't report it to
He
the
didn't
police.
report it. Okay.
No.
Okay, so he found the body. Does he leave it there? And then he returns 2 more times.
To
Okay, I started out liking Charles, and then liking him with his gulch and almost with a varmint gun until I found out that the varmints weren't varmints. They're actually magpies. Definitely not a hunter. And now we're finding out that he keeps returning to where he found the body, but not reporting it.
Right.
Okay. I'm not sure how I feel about Charles now.
Yeah, because it's certainly weird. And like, what was he?
Why is he doing that?
Why? What?
Right away when you
him?
said that he found it, I guess I jumped to the conclusion that he had alerted the authorities.
Right. No, you just drew that conclusion.
I drew that conclusion myself. You did not say that.
I did not say that. No.
But that's where my mind went as
but
a
like,
normal
of course
person.
you would. Right.
Because that's what you do when you find a body. So then when you said he returned twice, I'm like, oh, the cops must have been like, this is weird. Why is this guy returning? But there are no cops.
No. We are actually, we do have a future episode in which something similar to this does happen.
What do you mean? Like,
there's like another like returner, basically.
An unreported returner?
Mm-hmm.
So this is not a weird... It's weird.
It is
but
weird.
But it's not unheard of.
But it's not unheard of. So I would like to say that.
Okay.
Charles does end up reporting this to authorities. And what they encounter, what they arrive is definitely very brutal. Again, I try not to get too descriptive in explaining acts of brutality, but in this case, I'm not sure really how not to. So those listening might want to fast forward a bit if this is upsetting. And Vanessa, you unfortunately have to listen.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
The body turns out to be that of a woman. She is underneath a log, which is 8 inches in diameter.
The log is only 8 inches in diameter?
Yeah.
But that can't cover anything.
No, I mean, when I read log, or when I say log, I think like large log.
This is like a little, is it like a little tree trunk?
It sounds like it, but like, yeah, 8 inches in diameter is relatively small. It is, though, like 7 feet long. So there's that.
Not a great hiding place.
I don't think it was done for like hiding, because the log and her body had been doused in a flammable liquid. So it seems more for like fire starting reasons.
So we're getting to the part now that...
Yeah. It smells like gasoline in this area, so they settle on what was used as an accelerant. Because of this, her remains are badly burned, particularly the portions of her body that came into contact with the log. In the newspapers of the time, this is described as a funeral pyre. Now, in the online conversations I've seen about this woman, there's some interrogation of this phrasing, specifically because a pyre is one thing and can signify for funerary practices, but a funeral pyre is a very specific type of pyre. My general sense is, in searching for phrasings in newspapers at the time, that this phrasing is not uncommon in instances where a fire leads to death. And given that the scene doesn't seem arranged with a specific intent, my guess is that this phrase isn't used to indicate a special arrangement.
That's confusing. Because like a pyre, isn't it usually part of like an actual like ceremony?
Yeah, so a pyre, like the basic word pyre can just mean like essentially like a collection of burnable materials, right?
Okay, so it's not like
yeah,
what we normally think of as like a pyre of being like I said, more of a ceremony or...
Right. And then the newspapers decided to tack on the word funeral pyre.
Right.
Which
so
then leads people to believe that there was like a specific...
Like someone passed away and then a group of people did this.
Like some sort of ceremonial reason. But again, like that was just like a phrase usage that was happening when someone died in a fire.
Doesn't seem accurate for like murder.
Yeah. So that has like this use of the word funeral has often led people to believe that there was like a specific arrangement of things.
Right.
But there's not.
No. Okay, this is criminal activity.
Right. The only recognizable parts of this woman are her teeth, one breast, and her legs. One of the legs was separated from the rest of the remains, looking like it had been pulled away, carried, and then left a short distance away. They surmised that this may have been due to animal activity. One hand was also badly burned, but it still had some flesh on it, and because it was tucked under her body. They had hoped to get fingerprints from her, but they were not successful. With her, they found a piece of turquoise sequined cloth that looked like it came from a blouse. metal rivets that were likely from jeans, a small electric razor, a rhinestone necklace and earrings, a Denver tramway token, and a man's ring with no setting in it. Additionally, there were 3 empty lipstick containers. I'm guessing here that the lipstick melted out due to the heat of the fire. In addition, there are 3 safety pins, 2 pieces of a broken handbag mirror, and the sole of a shoe. Also nearby, about 100 yards away, was a tattered wallet with the name Mary Gokis inside.
Why are there so many little things here?
Basically, the fire has caused, like, basically all that's left are, like, the little bits. So
Right, but like, why would there be, like, an electric razor? Why are there these things?
Yeah, so I have heard people say, like, oh, you know, it kind of looks like stuff that you might bring if you're going out or your personal effects.
Okay.
Like an overnight or something. But yeah, it is a bit of a collection of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So before they even leave the scene, I am guessing the first assumption that investigators make is that they are looking at the remains of a woman named Mary Gokis. And indeed, they do manage to track down Mary Gokis's uncle in Idaho Springs. He says his niece is, in fact, alive and well and living in Nebraska with her new husband. His best guess for how her wallet ended up in the gulch is that she threw this out after having a picnic in the area. So it's unconnected.
Okay.
Which leaves the sheriff's office with no actual leads on who she is or who her killer was. Because there's no doubt in Sheriff Kenneth McKenzie's mind that she has been murdered. And he also has some theories about how she ended up there, stating either she was killed someplace else and carried up there to be burned, or stunned and put under the log and burned to death. He also believes that the log itself has been carried to the scene since there's no wood in the immediate vicinity where she was found. And so that leaves the medical examiner to determine what he can about who she is and what may have happened to her. From a small patch of hair left on her skull, they're able to determine that she had brown or maybe even black hair. She also had a prominent overbite. As for other details, Denver County Coroner Dr. George Ogura said that she was 25 to 30 years old. This will later be changed in the records to 17 to 30. He said she was around 5'7", which is in contrast to an earlier report given by the sheriff that she was around maybe 5'3", and that she had been killed 20 days earlier.
These are some very big differences in height and age, again.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we've talked about before how a lot of those are less scientific than we think.
Yeah, because if someone's missing and you're like, yes, this person's 5'7",
Right.
5'3" to 5'7" is a huge range.
So her time of death of 20 days earlier, this matches up with Sheriff McKenzie's first theory of, you know, when something might have happened to her. There had been a major rainstorm earlier in September, and he believed that this would have caused debris to be pushed onto her remains with the increase of water flow in the area, and that wasn't there. There was a question also of how she was murdered. There were 2 fractures to her skull. One was a smaller fracture where there was a dried blood clot. The sheriff theorized that this could have been from an initial blow to take her down. Then there was the larger fracture. This one was stellated and has a hole of 3/4 of an inch across. It's possible that this substantial injury was the cause of death, but they also were not able to tell if she was still alive or not when the fire was set. So technically her exact cause of death is unknown. And then that leaves this question, who then committed this brutal murder?
So none of those, obviously the one with the blood clot could not have happened after she died. Like,
right. So
could the I don't know.
The theory is like that obviously the fracture with the hole is a substantial injury, but they don't know if that resulted in death
or after.
Right. With the fire. So in terms of who did this, it's perhaps unsurprising that the immediate suspicion falls on Charles, right? The first reports of this incident in the papers refer to Charles as an itinerant carpenter, which I take to mean from context is that he was unemployed or marginally employed at the time this woman's body was discovered. So there's likely some thoughts there about his employment history or employability. And what he doesn't share with the sheriff's office initially is that, yes, he had gone back to the scene a few times before reporting it. And he also reveals that he was the one who had cut down the log.
What?
Yeah, he said that he cut it down in March of that year with the intention of using it for firewood. Because remember,
So he cut it and just left it there?
Yeah, which...
I mean...
That does seem strange, but like if you are someone who's using wood for, particularly for firewood, using fresh cut logs isn't great. It's like a very poor fuel for a fire. So you would want dried out wood. So it is possible that he cut it with the intention of
letting it dry
and coming back later.
Okay.
But once the sheriff's office knows that the fact that he returned to view the body several times.
And that's what he was actually returning for, to look at the body.
I think. What else would he be doing?
Trying to figure out if it's his log? I don't know. Like, why would you do this? Why would you?
I don't know. But he becomes an immediate suspect.
Well, he should.
Fair. We'll be back in a moment. Now, on October 5th, new evidence arrives thanks to a woman listed only as Mrs. Frank Heitman. I've seen her name listed as both Patsy and Viola, so I'm just going to refer to her as Mrs. Heitman, since I don't know her exact name. And I don't want to make light of this story at all, but I just love this woman. And so we're going to take a detour in a bit of a second into who Mrs. Heitman is. Now, Mrs. Heitman, she arrives at the sheriff's office with a bloody 3-foot-long stick that she says she found, and said that she found it 20 feet away from the burn site.
To be clear, you're not just like throwing in some British-y words, right? It's like actually covered in blood?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Right.
So it's actually like she found a 3-foot-long stick
with blood
on it.
Yes.
That's not a normal thing to find.
No.
Okay, so yes.
Not only that, she also found a single earring that hadn't been burned at all and a burned piece of leather, and this is all from the Cottonwood Gulch site. When she's asked what she was doing in the area, she basically says that she, along with 4 family members, had been on a drive through the Black Hawk area, and because they just so happened to be in the area, they decided to go look at the place the woman was found for themselves. And to me, that is almost believable if I didn't know that Mrs. Frank Heitman hadn't been involved in another case, this time the murder of a University of Colorado student, Teresa Foster, in 1948. Teresa had been sexually assaulted and murdered near Boulder. Now, this was the first murder connected to the University of Colorado, and the Regents very quickly offered $10,000 in reward money for information leading to an arrest in this crime. I don't know if it was this reward money or sheer curiosity that drove her, but Mrs. Heitman, accompanied by her daughter Loretta and son-in-law, went out to Lee Hill Road, the site of Teresa's murder, and did their own sleuthing. A few miles away, they found a parka streaked with blood that was stuffed inside a ditch culvert. This case ends up being really complicated and messy, so I can't share its full story here, but basically Mrs. Heitman is a full-on amateur sleuth, and she's just trying to pretend to be all casual by being like, oh, I was just passing through and decided to stop.
I feel like we could do like a whole deep dive into just this woman.
Yeah.
Maybe we need to do a special episode about
Mrs. Heitman.
An early sleuth.
Yeah.
Non-internet.
Yeah. I mean,
pre-internet sleuthing.
So like in the 1940s, early 50s. Yeah, she's out there with her daughter and her son-in-law. But her finds in this case, and in the last one, were important. There's what's considered to be the murder weapon with the find of the stick, or potential murder weapon if she didn't die by fire. The earring is the 3rd earring found at the scene. So there's the 2 found on the woman, which were a set. And then there's a single earring. And this offered investigators a new direction. They began theorizing that the earring could have come from a female accomplice or witness.
So we're not looking for another victim. We're looking for an accomplice.
Well, to me, this is like such a huge leap. Like, okay, so you found a 3rd earring. Like, could it have been from an accomplice or witness? That is a possibility, right? Is it possible, like, they just found a wallet that belonged to someone else who's alive and well and a woman? Like, could someone else have been visiting the Gulch and that's just happens to be in the area for some other reason?
Right. Women lose earrings all the time.
Could it be from, like, some woman who's being harmed by the potential killer in this case? Yeah, like, there are so many other options, but, like, it's been narrowed down to, like, it must have been. Could it have been the murder victim's own earring that she just had, like, lost its match to, or she was carrying an extra pair of earrings on her. Like,
Maybe.
also a possibility, right? Now, by October 8th, they've already brought Charles in for questioning, and they have given him a lie detector test. The results, they say, are inconclusive. Now, polygraph tests have been used in the United States at this point for like roughly 30 years, and the understanding of them at the time was that this was a valuable and scientific tool. Over the years, our understanding of them have changed, but in this era, the fact that he didn't conclusively pass a polygraph test meant that he was still a firm suspect. Given this, they then decide to question his wife, Malverna. Now, Malverna had just given birth to their son less than a month before on September 12th. So I'm guessing, one, having her husband questioned in a murder, and two, having to go into questioning herself were pretty overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is pure speculation now, which I generally dislike, but given that the third earring question is floating around, I wonder if they were considering her in that witness-accomplice role that they'd come up with. All of this, though, yields no arrests, and soon after, Charles, Malverna, and their family get out of Colorado and end up in Cass City, Michigan, and really, at this point, who can blame them? In terms of identifying a suspect, there isn't much to go on. Besides Charles, there are several others that the sheriff's eyeing, but then about 6 months later, an unnamed woman from Netherlands tells the sheriff that she had seen Charles's truck at Cottonwood Gulch on September 10th. That would have been 2 days before his son was born, which has, of course, led to wider speculation.
What kind of speculation?
Well, in this case, there's the, maybe this is Charles's mistress and he's had to murder her to get her out of the way before,
Okay, so they're going big places.
Yeah, we've now invented, a whole...
The baby's due, we've got to get rid of the mistress.
Right, that'll make sense. I mean, they've invented a whole mistress for this man, right?
Mm-hmm.
Again, this sends a new wave of activity through this case. The newly elected DA, George Priest, he goes to Michigan himself to interview Charles, who agrees to another lie detector test, this time administered by the Detroit police. Once again, this test is inconclusive. After this, Charles basically agrees, though I'm not sure how agreeable he was at this point, to go back to Colorado. So he's bundled in a car and driven to Colorado by the sheriff's officers. There, he undergoes a third lie detector test. And once again, it's inconclusive. That's when a decision is made to take him to Denver General Hospital and administer truth serum.
Truth serum?
Yeah.
Do we believe this?
Well, any number of drugs can be categorized as truth serum, which are basically drugs which, when given, are believed to allow a person or questioner to answer more truthfully. It's long been believed that those answers given under the influence of those drugs are, yes, truthful.
Okay.
You can see why there's been some questions about the validity of that in more recent years. But Charles was given sodium amytal, which is now known as amobarbital. This is also the same drug that had been under consideration in the questioning of the man responsible for the Aurora Theater shooting in 2012. So the idea of truth serum is not just a 19...
It's not an old-timey thing.
It's not an old-timey thing. So Charles goes to the hospital where they inject him with the sodium amytal and then question him for 6 hours. And yet again, this doesn't give them the answers they were looking for. This finally seems to satisfy DA George Priest. He says that Charles is free to return home whenever he wants to and that he, the DA, would pay for him to get back to Michigan out of his own pocket. He didn't want the taxpayers to have to foot the bill.
I don't want to feel sorry for Charles.
Are you feeling a little?
A little bit.
Yeah. That's a lot of...
He's been, kidnapped and drugged.
Basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
So while all this is happening, investigators are also simultaneously trying to figure out who the woman might be. Early on, a man named Jack Turner, who was the owner of a store called the Trading Post in Black Hawk, turned over a wallet that had been left in his store. He said that a male and female entered the store. He thought that they were a couple, and they were arguing about what kind of jewelry she would purchase before she made her selection of a few dollars worth of jewelry. He said that they left, but forgot a green and black wallet with $50 in it. They never returned. Inside the wallet was also what is being referred to as a charge book that had the name of a supply store in Bethany, Missouri. The store, when contacted, said that they didn't hand out charge books but had, in the past, provided slips of paper that showed the nature of the purchases made by the shopper. Regardless of what it was, there were no missing women from the area, so it was agreed that if this was from the murdered woman, it was in her possession only because she was passing through. The other bit of hope they had is that Jack Turner actually said the jewelry found on this woman was the ones that were purchased in his store. Now, the woman's skull is taken to the Denver police and a clay bust is made showing what she may look like. Now, I always warn about these particularly early clay models because they can sometimes have an uncanny valley feeling, but this, along with the drawing, are heavily circulated in Colorado and included in at least one FBI pamphlet in the hopes that she will be identified by these renderings. In fact, these two attempts, the clay bust and the drawing, are still widely used for her today. So just warning you if you are coming across them for the first time there.
Not good?
No.
Okay.
During this time, they gave her the name Maria, which is because there was a belief that she may be Mexican or from indigenous heritage out of Mexico. But she's often referred to as the Pyre Case more often. For the purposes of our podcast, though, I'm going to refer to her as Maria because there's a lot more gentle way than referring to her as, potentially one of the ways that she died. In November 1953, there seems to be a boost in identifying her. This guy, who ends up being a man named Lloyd Mason, contacts the newspaper reporter in Denver Post and says he knows who Maria actually is. He refuses to give his name because he says he doesn't want to get involved, but he does agree that they can meet at a bar. There, he tells the reporter that it's a woman named Dolores Parkhurst, who he'd worked with at a restaurant in Granby, Colorado. Once the reporter and Lloyd leave the bar, the reporter calls the police, who trace the call to Lloyd so they easily identify who he is. Lloyd has prior convictions for bigamy and rape, so they bring him in and hold him on some confidence game charges and then question him.
Did they look into who Dolores is?
Yes. So it turns out that Dolores is alive and well and living in Lakewood. But there actually is a missing waitress from this restaurant named Gladys Edwards. She was last seen leaving the restaurant roughly 5 days before Maria's body was found. So this is it, right? Like, this must be it. We have a missing waitress. The timeline matches up.
And is it?
No.
Oh.
They find out that Gladys actually disappeared because she was incarcerated in California.
Okay.
Yeah. And you can hear the frustration Sheriff Kenneth McKenzie must be feeling when he's interviewed in November 1953. He says, "We don't know who the victim is. We don't know who killed her. We have checked out every tip to the limit without success. The case is still very much open, but there haven't been any new developments to indicate any solution is near." And in 1961, another sheriff, Tom Collins, which, as an aside, I love his name because it's one of my favorite old lady drinks, says that he doesn't think this is a case that will ever be solved. Throughout the years, suggestions have been made for the real identity of Maria, though her case has never been one that kind of captured the attention of modern media. Still, a group of amateur sleuths, much like Mrs. Heitman and her daughter Loretta, have helped her case. She now has a nameless profile, and there are people who regularly check in about her on forums like Web Sleuths. Which brings me to a few unsubstantiated things. I've said before, I don't usually use message boards for specifics because I like to keep a strong list of more substantial confirmed sources, but I do often use them to see what kinds of conversations are being had about missing people in general, and sometimes there's just some really great source linking that happens in those places. So I was on Web Sleuth's thread, seeing what kinds of conversations were happening about Maria, when I came across some posts from 2022 about her remains being thrown in the landfill in the 1980s.
And here we are.
Yeah.
Okay.
And those posts are from someone who follows her case closely and had, as they claim, had conversations with the coroner's office. Now, as I mentioned at the top of our episode, this is not, again, something we're unfamiliar with, but it's really just hard to fathom.
It really is.
But again, though this should never be a practice and is not now, it is something that has happened
several times.
So to be clear, we were rebuffed in our quest for information through official channels, but I did come across an article from 2023 that states the Gilpin County coroner, Zane Laban, is looking for her bones. Which is to say, if they had been definitively placed in a landfill, this search wouldn't be happening. It's possible that that's what they suspect, is that she'd been placed in a landfill and are working to confirm that now, or trying to find her body.
So we don't know that happened.
Not
entirely.
Entirely,
Okay.
yeah. So, like, if you knew that that's what happened, is that she was placed in a landfill, you wouldn't be asking for information. So
Right.
he specifically said, hey, we are looking for her. If anyone was around at the time and knows what happened, can you please tell us, like, what happened to her remains? He does confirm that there was a rumor that her bones were placed in a cardboard box and that box had floated around the courthouse for a while before disappearing. This Jane Doe is listed on a Gilpin County cemetery, leading some to believe that she's there. It's the biggest cemetery in the area, but this was just listed as her resting place because it's the closest cemetery to where she was found, not that she actually has a grave there. So if you find her on Find a Grave, it's not definitively her. Which leaves Laban, who's been looking around cemeteries, looking for her burial place. And again, anyone has any information on where she might be buried, we'll include that contact information in our show notes. And of course, like, why is this important now? Because we now have investigative genetic genealogy that would help identify her if there was just access to her remains to obtain the necessary DNA. Without them, at best, they're relying on circumstantial evidence that ties someone to her or a confession from someone that identifies her. And as the years pass by, that's increasingly unlikely. And so this inability to resolve the case weighed on the Dameth family. Charles and his wife divorced soon after leaving Colorado. In 2013, Charles's daughter Kathy told a Denver Post reporter, Kirk Mitchell, whose work on this was instrumental in creating this episode, that, I don't know why this bothers me today, except I watch cold case files on television and wonder if her murderer was ever caught. I am the last living person in my family and would like to know whether or not my father was involved or not. I would be remiss in the creation of this episode without mentioning a woman who has been floated as a possibility for a while. Her name is Lillian Eileen Huff Damaris, who was born in 1921 and was living in Mason City, Iowa. By the time she disappeared in August 1952, Lillian had been married several times but was a single mom raising her 3 daughters in Mason City. She worked as a food vendor at a traveling carnival. On the day she was last seen, which was August 14th, she was planning on taking her daughter out for her birthday. She never arrived. And her car was found parked at the carnival she was working at. For reference, Mason City and Black Hawk, Colorado are a little over 800 miles apart. From what I can tell, there have been rumors circulating for years that she's Maria, and in 2022, Lillian's NamUs profile disappeared, indicating that her case has been closed. And there have been posts since stating that her family members identified her through jewelry.
Is that the same jewelry that we were talking about earlier from the store?
Yeah, it is. So earlier, if you remember, Jack Turner had said, oh, that's the jewelry from my store. So we've entered into a bit of a conflict with the jewelry, right?
Yeah.
So, like, is it possible that at the time Jack Turner was wrong and had misidentified the jewelry that came from his store? Absolutely. Yeah. But it does enter into some, like, could it be, could it not be kind of question. Also, there's been social media posts from the family indicating that apparently there have been conversations about her being Maria. And again, I don't have to believe it for it to be true. Like, my opinion won't sway the world. I must just wait for an actual announcement. At best, this is a presumptive identification based on matching photos, identification of personal effects. Because without her remains, it's unlikely that it could be anything more. Which means that until there's something more official from the coroner or law enforcement, Maria's case is still listed as unsolved.
We are now going to listen to Amy's poem, 14 Pounds, read by Dedee Pfeiffer. Dedee landed her first movie role in Into the Night. She went on to star in the horror cult classic comedy Vamp, and in the film Red Surf, and made numerous appearances in films such as Falling Down with Michael Douglas and Tune In Tomorrow with Keanu Reeves. Dedee played numerous roles on multiple television shows for the past 40 years, including her role on Sybil as Sybil Shepherd's daughter Rachel, and For Your Love, and guest starred in several of the most iconic shows on television, including Simon and Simon, Murder, She Wrote, Ellen, Seinfeld, Friends, 2 CSI series, ER, and Supernatural, to mention a few. Dedee won awards and nominations as an actor and producer on her short films The Tub and Laredo. She also appeared in the award-winning film LA, I Hate You. Dedee took a 10-year break from Hollywood to earn her Master of Social Work degree from UCLA and returned to acting as a series regular, playing Denise Brisbane on the ABC drama Big Sky. She is a proud single parent who has raised her 2 boys and is grateful to be recovering out loud in hopes to reduce the social stigma and shame that still surrounds those suffering with their disease of addiction. This is where her podcast, Down with Dedee, comes in.
14 pounds. Unidentified woman discovered September 30th, 1952, near Black Hawk, Colorado. My soul weighs no more than 21 grams, a weight that forgets how it feels to touch one lip against another, and the burden of the body it leaves behind. And what remains? The heaviness of blood spread thin across the gulch, dark hair matted on a stretch of skin, charcoal bone wedged deep in the scorched earth, the gasoline burn of the felled log, the morning dew sequined on a web of gristle. Did you know a magpie's heart weighs 9.3 ounces? What does that say about how its voice sounds calling across the divide?
For more information about our show or to check out other shows on the network, please visit evergreenpodcast.com. Bye, Vanessa.
Bye, Amy.